Bridgerton! Yes, we're back, finally. It's here. A month has passed, Janine. It seems to have gone a little bit quick, but also it
Yeah.
couldn't really come soon enough, could it? We're
Yes.
back. Babbling About Bridgerton is here. Morgan hasn't seen TV. We're talking the last half, the second half of season 3 of Bridgerton. Who knows when Babbling About Bridgerton will return in a season 4 of Bridgerton, of course. Who knows when that will be? I'm sure it certainly will be the case, but I think we're very excited to get
Yes.
into today's discussion. Obviously, we had the first half of this season, season 3 of Bridgerton, come out a month ago. We were here wondering how the second half would play out. I think we all assumed it would all be okay in the end. There'd be arguments, there'd be roller coasters of things happening. Of course there would. Did we get that? Did we get enough of that? I think
Yeah.
we got a little bit of that, but did we get as much as we maybe thought? Are people even, for some reason, mad about the end of this season of Bridgerton? That seems a little bit strange to me, considering I thought it was really quite sweet. It certainly, for me, feels like the start of something new for many of the Bridgertons themselves, which I
Yeah.
quite like as an ending to this season 3. But ultimately, does this second half live up to what we thought it was going to for all the characters involved? To me, yes, I think it does. I was very, very happy with how we rounded out this season of Bridgerton. What about you, Lady Letitia Mimosa
Well,
Magnolia?
I will start by saying I am a little disappointed that you didn't start this episode as Lord Whistleуp saying, "Dearest gentle listeners."
That's a
But
very, very good point. I apologise for that. You know what? Sometimes we just don't think about things on the
Yes,
fly.
yes.
Why didn't you bring that up before we began the
like it
show?
literally just came to me as you were doing the opening. I'm like, he really needs to say the lady Whistledown line, but I can't tell him now. So yes,
Yeah.
I was giving you credit to kind of think of that on your own, but
Just don't
but
give me any credit.
zero credit. But yes, I have seen a bit of discourse in terms of how people feel about this season. A lot of people feel like they didn't get enough of Colin and Penelope in Colin and Penelope's season. Um, they're also kind of disappointed about some changes that were made, feeling like things were a little bit rushed. I think particularly book readers are feeling like they're missing quite a bit from the books, but the books are fairly different from the show from what I've kind of researched and
Yeah.
what I've kind of learned. So I think that's to be expected. So I'm not sure why there's this kind of inherent disappointment in that aspect directly. But I was really happy with how this season turned out. I personally did feel like I wish there were a little bit more of things, and I do kind of get the rushed feeling in aspects, but overall, I think they drove home a really beautiful theme. The romantic scenes with Colin and Penelope were really well done. Um, but yeah, I think it's gotten me excited to see where other characters are gonna go, particularly with Benedict's story. That's kind of one aspect that I didn't dislike, but I was kind of just confused maybe a little bit about, so we can get into that. But
Yeah.
overall, as a season of a show that I really enjoy, I think it ended beautifully. It was very romantic and had some great themes and, really some wonderful character moments. So I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I think it's only reasonable for us to start today then by talking about Colin and Penelope.
Yeah.
Perhaps you've seen people somewhere feeling like they didn't get enough Colin and Penelope. Perhaps these are book readers, and I think this is a good point to, or a good point of the show to remind people that the books heavily focus on the central romance of their book and not much else. And the
Yeah.
show is centers around that, but has all these
All
various
these other
things on it.
characters to service and set up the next season, and and it's a whole different dynamic than the books in terms of having the queen and the variety of people in the tone and different characters that have been introduced and given a little bit of story here and there. So there's a lot of characters to service that you don't really have to do in the book.
Yeah. So really, I think a better way of looking at it, a better way of asking ourselves about it is, does the season feel imbalanced? And I don't think it does.
Yeah.
I feel like we get a really fair balance of everything that's going on while keeping the central romance the central part of
Yeah.
the whole thing. Of course, it's the central part of the whole thing. I think what maybe takes some people away from it being purely a romance is the whistle down revelation angle of it all, which we have to remind ourselves is still their story, or it's at
Yeah.
least certainly
So
one
part
of
of it.
their
Yeah.
stories,
Yeah.
and it's very much a part of it. It just feels so significant on top of the central romance that we can quite easily look at it as a totally separate thing. And I just don't think it is. I think it's very much part of the same thing. We get, I think in episode 6 of the season, so 2 episodes into this final half, Colin actually finding out properly
Yeah.
that Penelope is whistled down. It causes strife, it causes
Yeah.
arguments. And okay, do people think that was rushed? Do people think it was resolved
Well,
quickly? Well,
yeah,
if you
well, I
look
think
at the if you look at the scenes when it is resolved, do those scenes not play out in very understandable ways, in very kind of logical ways? I don't think it feels rushed when you actually watch and listen to what Colin in
yeah.
particular is saying in those scenes, and he comes to understand why Penelope started Whistledown in the first place and what it meant, and the pure love he has for her means way more than
Yeah,
this thing
and
that he grows to actually understand why it began.
yes, and I think he also, they touch on why he is actually upset about it, which I think is something they do go into more in the books. And so because they didn't go into it as much as they did in the books, that's I think what people are upset with. In the books, he does realize that he is more jealous of her than anything else for having this life's work and purpose. And he doesn't really have that. He's just developing his writing and she is so good at it and this kind of thing. So they take time to have him come to this realization that, I'm not so upset with her because of the lie of it. I'm upset because I'm jealous of her. So they touch on it, but they don't really delve into it deep. And so that's, I think, what people are upset about. I think
Okay.
also the fact that we did get the passionate carriage scene that we got at the end of the first half
Yeah.
after him finding about Whistledown. So he finds out about Whistledown in the book, catches her, gets in a carriage with her home, and they have this argument that leads to all of the passionate things. So I think because we got a scene similar to that in him, seeing her running into her on the street, they have this kind of passionate argument about Whistledown and it turns into this kissing scene and then he just puts her in a carriage and sends her home. I think people wanted to see a scene of an argument kind of turning into this passionate kind of thing as well, which I mean, I found myself wanting to see, but I don't think it like ruined everything that it didn't happen.
That's true, actually. I remember that now. It is. I
Yeah.
felt because you had spoken to me many times,
Yeah.
I think, on the last babbling about Bridgerton to
Yeah.
where we talked about the carriage scene of this
Mhm.
season. You had spoken to me about the fact that that scene in the book form does come after the Whistledown revelation. And
Yeah.
when that scene in the second half turns up, when it is very much a case of they're arguing about the fact of Whistledown and the carriage shows up at the right hand side of the frame, I'm thinking, oh, we're in for another passionate love scene
Yes,
here.
they're
But
gonna have this passionate fight, and they're gonna do something in the carriage, or we're gonna see them cut to them at home having this kind of whirlwind situation, and then kind of look at each other and realize that maybe they're still upset with each other. Or even in the carriage scene, in the book, it's kind of like Colin telling her she's not gonna do it anymore, and her kind of just done with the conversation and not saying yes or no. So
Mm.
I kind of thought, okay, it's gonna lead to this passionate moment. They're gonna, have a hook up and everything, and then they're gonna kind of look at each other, and he's gonna tell her, list all of the reasons why she shouldn't be whistled down, for her safety, for the family, and all of this, and she's just gonna stay silent and think about it and have this kind of like stress look on her face, and then that would have kind of ended that scene. That's kind of where I thought
Perhaps
it would have gone, but it didn't do that. So.
perhaps we've just got to realise that Luke Newton's Colin Bridgerton is just rather a more wholesome character.
Well, yes, and I mean, there was even a scene where they alluded to, and I think people were thinking it was gonna go there as well, when, he's sleeping on the couch and he goes into the room and he
Yes.
sees her in her kind of
Yes.
nightgown, and he's looking at her, and he obviously wants her in this moment. And you think he's just gonna grab her, and like they're gonna have this whirlwind situation, and it's gonna be again at the end of it, maybe looking at each other like we're still maybe kind of upset, but we love each other, but this whole kind of thing. But no, he just grabs some pillows and goes. So then it's another
Yeah.
situation where, so it felt like a little bit of a letdown in the aspect of, this show, one of its bankable things is like the passionate scenes and the love scenes and being this very sexy thing. And we really only got like one big scene of that, particularly with Colin and Penelope. So I think, had they used these moments, because, I think first season out the gate, we got so many montage scenes of the Duke and Daphne making love in all kinds of places and all kinds of positions and everything. We got it in Queen Charlotte. We obviously couldn't get it, very much of it, in season 2, because it's like this built up kind of thing. So,
But,
I
but
think
when we did get it, and the pleasure of season 2 was the fire brewing in the background,
yes,
it
yes.
still felt that. This is just a different form of love. This
Yes.
is a different form of romance. And I do find it odd, a little bit, how we didn't get a post whistle down love scene, to be
Yes.
honest. I
Yeah.
do find it odd. However, the 2 love scenes we get, the
Mhm.
carriage one previously and the one at the very, very beginning of this second half,
And we do
which
get a
is the
tiny short scene of them in bed and Penelope's on top, but it's kind
we
of a
do,
quick.
that's very true, yeah.
Yes.
But we get another significant one at the very start of this second half of the season that's very passionate and very
Yes.
sweet.
Oh my gosh. So yes, let's talk. I mean, the scene, very well filmed. I think the actors had talked, you know, incessantly and been asked incessantly about how the love scene went and how it was choreographed and the intimacy coach, and they were very much
Yeah,
like, we were in charge, we got to choose what we wanted to show and how we wanted to do it, and we had a lot of freedom to be comfortable with each other in the scene, and you felt all of that. It felt very fluid, it didn't feel rehearsed. Nicola kind of had made this joke after the Stimple Shrimple Dimple lady was talking about she's fat and
yeah, well, that
terrible, and so she, on one of the premieres, she's on the stage talking about, people have been telling me how brave I am, to depict my body. Well, people like me, people with perfect breasts, it's just very difficult for us to like, show ourselves on screen. So I hope that I'm doing my part for women like me who have perfect breasts. And so when we saw her breasts, I was like, okay, she did not lie.
yeah,
Nicola
yeah.
Nicola
Yeah,
Coughlin
you're
has
like,
some pretty perfect breasts. So yes,
okay.
the boldness of her just, putting it out there, and she looked gorgeous and it was very romantic, and yeah. Um I loved everything, the build up to it, the mirror, because the mirror scene is kind of like a big scene people talk about, which in the book they don't
Yeah.
actually even do it in front of a mirror. He just tells her he wants to do it in front of a mirror.
Mm,
And just says, "Oh no, we'll do it later, another time." So they don't actually do it in front of the mirror. So the fact that they actually gave us time in front of the mirror where he's taking down her hair, and I think a lot of people were also kind of upset in that first half that they never had heard him call her beautiful. So the fact that
mm.
he, talked about all the, attributes he loves about her personality, and then he gets into her eyes and her hair and starts telling her all of these things, and
And here is
it
a reason why the concept of the split season releases is actually, I don't think, a very good thing. Yes, okay, it might keep the conversation going on a more kind of consistent weekly basis, but in that sense, why not just release shows weekly? Plenty of successful shows release shows weekly. It's just never been Netflix's thing. And now Netflix do the split season
Yeah.
thing, don't they? A lot of the time, where you'll get the one half and you'll get the other half a month, 2 months, 6 weeks down
Yeah.
the line, or
Yeah.
something nonsense like that, like we got with this. So it can, people can rush to judgment when they haven't seen a full thing play out
Yeah.
yet. And that was, I said this very much the case on the last episode of Babbling About Bridgerton that we did. And I think every little bit of that was resolved perfectly well in this second half of the season.
Yeah.
I really do. And was I annoyed with anything in the first half? No, because it hadn't finished its
Finished
own
yet.
narrative
Yeah.
yet.
Exactly. So I think it stood to just wait for all of it to then kind of make this whole judgment of everything. So if people didn't like it on its whole kind of basis, okay, I get that. But to kind of people who were prejudging it before they even got to the second season was kind of like, okay, what I mean, there's more to come. And had you maybe just waited and watched it all in one sweep, it maybe would have felt more fluid to you.
Yeah,
But generally,
definitely.
this love scene came out really beautifully. The song they used, how it played out, we see the friendship in the moment as well, them kind of laughing to each other at the end, and,
Yes,
um,
perfect. I
yeah.
said that
Yes.
last time. You
Yes.
want to be
So
laughing, don't you?
yes. So, really beautiful love scene with the 2 of them. Um, and yeah, just love the kind of romantic, silly scenes of them in the church and him kind of twirling her and him
Yes.
saying he loves her, because I think in the book, he doesn't actually say he loves her until they make love for the first time, which is after the carriage and the engagement and all of that. Um, but he tells her he loves her quite a bit in this last half
Mm.
before they even get married. So I was like, okay, I like this. Because
I'd
yeah,
like to just point
he
out,
tells her when kind of, whisks her away after telling off her mom, which was also a great scene as well.
oh yeah, oh yes,
Yes.
yes, Portia. Finally, I mean, Portia's been an annoying thorn in everybody's side for
Yeah.
years now. I appreciate actually how close the Featheringtons seem to get
Ended
by
up.
the end of this season.
Yes.
It seems
Yes.
so sweet. Like genuinely as well, to the point where Penelope's really confused when Prudence says something genuinely nice to her.
Yes. And
She
she thinks she's
thinks it's
only
just a
saying it because
joke. She
Portia's
wants
there.
Prudence.
Yeah.
Exactly. She wants Prudence to start laughing as soon as Portia goes away, but there's none of it. It is
Yeah.
actually all coming from the heart. It makes you actually look at Portia Featherington with a smile on your face, which is something I don't think I've done before,
Yes, and the
because she's
realization.
constantly just annoyed me and annoyed me and annoyed me. And
Yes.
just before we move on, please, just before we move on, I want to bring up the fact, because I will forget, the two world's worst song choices for the violin for for Penelope and Colin's whole entire thing. The end of the first half, obviously, with the stupid Pitbull song, and for God's sake, at the wedding we get Coldplay. What's that about? She walks down the aisle to Coldplay. Are you
Okay,
joking me?
no, well, you have to think about the lyrics of these songs. So the
I'm not
Pitbull
thinking
song.
about the lyrics of the song. I'm
Okay,
thinking about the image of Coldplay.
okay.
They annoy me.
All right. Well, the whole point of the choice of those songs was because of what the songs say and what the songs are about.
Yes,
In
yes,
I
but
I
the
think I
point.
explained this. I think I explained this in the carriage situation. In the book, in that carriage scene, the monologue of Penelope is very much thinking like, "This is a one-time thing, so I have to make it count." This could never be like a real thing. Like, this is just a momentary thing. So I'm going to make this, enjoy it while I can. We might not live for tomorrow. Like, let's just do this
Don't
tonight
even
and make it the
say it.
best thing. So that is literally what the carriage scene in that moment was for Penelope. Then we get into the wedding scene, and because yellow was this kind of dowdy color for her, making her look like ridiculous, and it, you know, also obviously the metamorphosis theme as well of butterflies, and like one of her most symbolic looks of who she was in the early
Yeah.
things of the season was her with this huge butterfly on her dress. So that was kind of her signature color, because it's always said, Bridgerton blue, Penelope's color is yellow. So that's why she comes out in a green dress in the beginning of the season, because it's a combination of their colors. So
Look, I get it.
yellow is Penelope's defining signature color. So the fact that they're able to use this song to reframe who Penelope is, harkening back to who she was, it's kind of speaking to her metamorphosis and turning it into this beautiful thing. It's very much reminded me of how yellow was used in Crazy Rich Asians. It was a reclaiming of that word, in terms of how it had been used. That the director had heard that song by Coldplay and felt like it was the first time he saw beauty in the word yellow because of that song. So he wanted to use a different interpretation of it in Crazy Rich Asians. I feel like that's kind of similar to what they did using it here. It's, a reinvention of the word for Penelope in terms of who she was and who she's now becoming. So I'm able to focus on the meaning behind the use of the song and not, oh, it's like Coldplay, girl. Oh, it's my Pitbull, girl.
Unfortunately, Janine, I think there are many, many, many songs that could convey the two meanings that those two songs convey in those moments. I understand your argument for yellow with the colour aspect. I understand that part. The fact of the matter is, this is a personal opinion of mine. I can't stand Coldplay, the stupid man's face. I can't stand his face. He annoys me. It just grates on my brain so much. That is my personal agenda, right?
Yes.
It's totally personal. Nothing against Bridgerton. Nothing against anything that's going on. This is just something that I heard and went, oh God, no. I have to bring it up.
I mean, to some degree, I get it, because I'm not the hugest fan of Taylor Swift, but there are several of her string
Yeah.
iterations throughout Bridgerton and throughout fan edits and things, and I'm just like,
did we not get, what is it, You Belong With Me at the wedding
yes,
dance?
yes,
Yes, we did.
yes.
I'm happy about
But
that. I don't
but
mind that. You don't like that, but you don't see
I
me
don't
going on a
like
big
yes, I mean,
tirade about how it's so
but
appropriate.
I'm not going on a tirade. I'm like, I understand the use of it, just like I did with the other ones. I could see the nuance in the use of the song.
Stop,
It fit the moment. It was still beautiful. It didn't take anything away from the scene for me, but I'm like, why do they have to use a Taylor Swift song? She's everywhere. But
stop being
I
reasonable.
didn't I can be reasonable and nuanced about my thought process and the use of songs. So yes, to go back to Portia, I like that, her saying those things to her, Colin standing up to her, and then her kind of getting this perspective. Because she's still kind of in this mindset thinking that like Colin doesn't really love her. Penelope must have done something, because
Mm,
she's so stuck in this mindset, which I love that she said it, that men rule everything. So I grew up in a time thinking about how women have no agency, women have no ability to do for themselves. Men hold all the power. So our power is doing what we can to get the man's attention in some way or whatever. So the fact that that's just her ingrained way of thinking makes you kind of understand her a little bit more, and makes
yeah,
Penelope understand her a little bit more. And I love that they find that despite being kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum, they are a lot alike in terms of how cunning they are, the things they have to do, they'll do whatever they need to do to get by, to kind of, they're a little bit selfish in the way they think, and all of that kind of thing. So I like that they both find they have this determined, cunning spirit, and that's what they have in common, even though they've used it in different ways. And they kind
it
of
was
come
one
together and
line.
make this agreement that, we must do better. So,
Yeah, but it was one line for me from Portia, which was just, look what you've made for yourself.
yeah.
That she doesn't even understand how that is
Yeah.
possible, but she's genuinely so proud that she's been able to make that for herself. And I suppose moving on to a different little storyline now, she obviously has a load of money hidden away, does Penelope.
Yeah.
Um, Particularly a load of money for the time period we're dealing in, which
Yes.
somebody uses as blackmail.
Yes. So we kind of learn how much money she's made as being Lady Whistledown, as Cressida does go snooping around asking different shops if they know anything, and hears from somebody that, "Oh, I've heard that she has red hair," and,
Mm,
they kind of end up giving her enough information to piece together that it's probably Penelope. Because, as we saw, Eloise, uh figuring it out after having one conversation where she for once listened to Penelope, how easy it
yeah.
was for her to figure it out. So I think with just a little bit of context clues and then giving her time to think about it like Eloise did, then it would have been easy for anyone to figure out that it was Penelope. So when she does blackmail her. I think they do put her in a very desperate situation, so you kind of understand it. But that was a bit of another criticism for me. It's like they tried to do things for us to feel sorry for Cressida, which you do,
You
but
do. You
are they
definitely do.
meant to redeem her or just to understand her motivation? Because in the
I
end, she doesn't really get redeemed. She still kind of gets punished for what she did. So,
She no, she doesn't, and to be honest, I never did view it as a redemption. I viewed it as an understand almost as a pity, like
yeah,
it's understanding why she has been as spiteful as she has been. It's harsh, it's nasty, you do feel sympathy. She's in a very tough familial situation,
yeah,
obviously, but she doesn't help herself either.
yeah,
And outing herself as Whistledown in front of everybody, and then never actually being able to properly follow up on it, really
yeah,
coming under the Queen's scrutiny about it all because she clearly can't follow up on it properly. She
yeah.
clearly can't put on the true Whistledown persona, and it crushes her, but that is a decision she makes on her own.
Yeah.
The fact we understand why does give her sympathy, does give her pity, but it doesn't redeem any of the
Yeah.
negatives. Because is she ever actually pleasant still?
I mean, in the fact
No.
I mean, the fact that she we have the scenes of her calling out Eloise when Eloise is blaming her for letting out the courting secret about Penelope, but then she has to kind of like, "You're the one who um and when Eloise tells her stop being mean to Penelope, she's like, "You're right, like I shouldn't waste my attentions on making her feel bad or whatever." So
I just think
you
there's a
feel like
difference.
I think there's just like they kind of set it up and made you feel like they were going in that direction only to kind of just switch it up and just
Yeah.
make it about giving a reasoning behind the why she is the way she is, which I enjoyed getting to know more about her, and having that understanding. But I think they set it up as almost like it was going to be a redemption. And even when the actress kind of talked about it in interviews, she made it kind of seem like there was a bit of a redemption that was going to happen. So when it just went the route of she does this thing, she ultimately ends up having to pay the consequences by the end because it looks like she's in a carriage going to be sent off with her aunt. Um,
Yeah.
then there's no redemption. So it just felt like they were setting up for redemption, so when it didn't go there, it felt a little disjointed. I just wish it kind of maybe would have been more clear that that was kind of the plan all along, just to us to get to know the inner workings of Cressida and leave it at that instead of kind of trying to ease in this potential redemption thought, you know?
Which I understand, and perhaps this is something we get in a later season. Perhaps somebody somewhere allows Cressida to come back into the Tom Society
Yeah.
and invites her
Maybe
back.
Lord Dabbling will and after
Whoever,
3
yeah,
years comes back from his long journey and say, "Hey, that Cressida was a nice girl," and
quite
with
possibly, quite possibly. But it might, something like that might happen. And there's a difference with Cressida between her actively or not actively being mean and actively being pleasant, and she's never actively pleasant. She might not
That's true.
actively be mean in some parts of this season, but she's never actively pleasant.
That's true.
And it's a small curve, and it might be a curve in the redemption direction, but we're not there yet because we're not ultimately at the finality point of everybody's
Of this whole
story yet.
thing. Yes, but I also liked, though, how it worked to be bringing Eloise and Penelope back together and them kind of
Yes,
working together.
yes.
So we get a scene of them kind of joking on the couch, talking like
You
we
know,
were used
you
to
know,
seeing
I've
them.
liked their friendship anyway. I know we have
Yeah,
the issues with it in the past of it all being very Eloise heavy, but
yeah.
I was always on the Eloise understandable train as
Yes, and
opposed to everybody else,
well, yes,
and
I mean,
I
I
like
have
that.
never yes, I've never been a fan, but I liked that she seemed more attentive to Penelope when Penelope wasn't there, so it made me feel like she was coming to some type of realization at how little attention she paid to her in their friendship, because even at the beginning of this, um, season when she says, "How long have you had feelings for my brother?" And for Portia to even kind of know that Penelope had always loved
Mm,
Colin, but her best friend Eloise not knowing that, just
yeah,
speaks to how kind of self-involved Eloise had been in their friendship. But I think her having that time away and watching Penelope and looking out for her and asking Colin how is she doing and things like that, and keeping an eye on her in that sense, I think at least spoke to me to a degree that she realizes how little she paid attention, and now that she's paying attention more, I liked that. So I did kind of like them coming together and working together in that way. And I also liked her taking accountability when um Cressida does when I think Cressida puts out her little issue in front of the queen
yeah.
saying, "Oh, issue coming soon." Penelope grabs her hand and they kind of run off and talk about it together. And Eloise
That's
does
when
actually take
Colin notices.
Yes, and Eloise actually takes accountability for the fact that, "No, like, this predicament that I got into with the queen, that was wholly my fault, and bringing kind of Cressida into this mix, that was my fault." So I needed at least some glimmer of Eloise taking accountability for her part. I wish, honestly, I would have gotten more of I wanted more of both Colin and Eloise kind of they could still be upset with Penelope for what she did as Whistledown, but I wanted them to come to some understanding on the specific grievances they felt that they suffered under Whistledown. Like, I wanted Eloise to be more clear about, so I got like that we got the line that, I got myself into the situation with the queen, but I wanted her to be like, I probably could have been beheaded or hung or something by the queen and you saved me from that. I wanted
Yeah,
Colin to be like, yeah, you did save me from this ill-fated marriage with someone I didn't know who was trying to trap me. So I wanted kind of at least some type of realization to that. But
I
not getting it didn't kill anything for me because I think Colin came to quite a few revelations about the importance of what Whistledown means to Penelope and her intentions with Whistledown. So
I
he
think
came
that's
to a
the most important
realization. Yes, I think that's important. So, but just for me and those little details, and it's constantly the thing he always brings up about what Whistledown did to him, her ruining Miss Thompson, has been said so many
yeah.
times. I needed him to realize that she saved him from kind of a worse fate, specifically because he brought it up so much before, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose this is just a matter of
Of just
time,
nitpicking and
isn't it?
small things. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's small things. It's time of a season.
Mhm.
It's so much going on in a season of
Yeah.
television that is a finite amount of time. So you
Yeah.
can't have
Harp on
absolutely
every little thing. Yes, but
you
there
need
were
to have it the
spread
work.
out and focus on the bigger picture things, but I like that we did get nods to, again, Eloise taking accountability, Colin realizing that she had her reasons for what she did, even though he's not addressing specific things that she did. So yeah, those revelations worked for me, but of course, just in my little tiny teeny mind, these are things that have been brought up a lot, so I wanted them to kind of be addressed at least head on, but it didn't ruin anything for me. It was just kind
No.
of little tiny pieces that I would have loved to see in there.
And look, I get that, but as far as Eloise is concerned as well. I enjoy where her season finishes, and this will bring us on to talking about Francesca and Lord Kilmartin. But
Yes.
where Eloise finishes, obviously, is spreading herself, spreading her wings, actively going out,
Going out.
wanting to see more of the world. I'd also just like to bring up a tiny little historical point that you just mentioned that I've just remembered. We weren't really beheading people in Georgian
Okay,
England
well, you
anymore.
okay,
That was
okay. Well,
uh,
put
that
she could
just
have
a
been
nitpick. That
yes,
one, just a
yes.
nitpick.
Well, yes, okay, well, thank you for the history explanation because I don't know these things. I'm just, um, but yeah, I mean, she could have been put to death or,
Yeah,
become an
no,
indentured
that
servant, some
absolutely.
terrible fate.
That was
Um,
just a little joke.
yes, no, I appreciate the history lesson. But yes, like, I think it's been brought up several times, people calling out Eloise for talking so much but not doing anything. Um, and I think, Cressida mentions it to her. Penelope mentioned it to her when they got in their big fight when Eloise first found out. So again, a revelation for Eloise that like I keep talking about doing things and how I want the world to be when I've seen very little of it. So the fact that she's going to kind of go on this journey and see a new place, I think that's perfect for, her story and what she needs. Which then also just kind of has me wondering how her story is going to go because if Benedict is next season, then Eloise will be after that, and her love story is with Sir Philip Crane, who is at current times married to Marina. So now I'm kind of curious to see how that is going to play out. I have my ideas and theories as to how that
There's
could
no
play out, but
there's no guarantee Eloise goes to permanently live in Scotland. She might just
yes,
want an extended holiday.
exactly, and she does say that, "Oh, I will be back for Mother's Masquerade Ball," which is a very huge hint to Benedict's book because he meets his
Ah,
love
okay.
interest at a masquerade ball.
I see. I
So,
see.
she says she will be back for that. But even, like, I think they set up with the Sir Philip Crane character, he loves plants and things, so who knows? He might travel to Scotland to look at some
We
special
might
tree or grass. They
nice
meet each
nice
other.
thistles in
Yeah,
Scotland.
right? So they might, meet each other and realize, "Oh, you're Marina's husband, blah, blah, blah." And because her whole story with Philip, I believe, which I haven't read, but I've only kind of looked at bits and pieces, is a correspondence kind of love story. They talk through
Ah,
letters. And they've been talking through letters all through Colin and Penelope's story, which is why in Colin and Penelope's book, the conflict is Colin thinks Eloise is Lady Whistledown because he constantly sees her sneaking around writing letters, ink
see.
all over her hands and all that kind of thing. But it's because she's corresponding with Philip secretly. So
Okay.
maybe they will have a meet and decide to just talk and write letters to each other, and then they'll actually kind of be developed in her season or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
I like
yeah,
the sound of that.
but I like the idea of her kind of finally getting out there. She talks about wanting to do things, so she's actually doing something. So I'm curious to see what she's going to be doing and having this adventure, what her adventure is going to be, and if it's going to maybe have subtle builds to her love story. So,
Yeah. I would like to think so, and obviously there's a reason she's going to Scotland, and that's because
yes.
Francesca and Lord Kilmartin are going to his home, or one of his homes, in Scotland, way away in the Highlands, way in miles and miles away from anywhere, completely on its own for total peace and tranquility and solidarity, which is what they both just love,
Love and
isn't it?
enjoy with each other. And I think that's what that builds this conflict with Violet because she feels like maybe they're too similar. And she's so hung up on the only love she's known being this passionate, fight
Yeah.
for it kind of thing. That I think that's why she was so encouraging of it with Daphne and the Duke and
Mm.
Anthony and Kate because she could see it was a big, passionate, electric, at first sight kind of thing, um, like she
I have a
had.
question.
Yes.
Do we miss Daphne this season?
I
Because
mean,
I
I think
keep forgetting she's even supposed to be there.
yes. I mean, I think they work because I think a lot of the scenes that Daphne has in this story, they give to Kate, which I didn't mind because I
Ah, that's
wanted
a
to
fair
see
point.
I wanted to see Kate interact with the family more because in her season, obviously, it was very focused on just her and
Yeah.
Anthony and then her and her
Yeah.
family. So I liked
Which
her
she
giving
definitely
Colin
does
and
in this season. She
yeah, so I liked
definitely
her
does.
having that moment with Eloise. I like seeing her have moments with Violet. I liked seeing her give that advice to Colin and like tug his chin, and have this kind of nice moment with him. So I wouldn't inherently say I miss Daphne, but I liked that that gave Kate more to do because Kate and Anthony were very much sidelined in the season, which it kind of is the point. It's focused on another couple.
Do you
Um,
not think though? Do you not think that what's her name? Phoebe Dynevor? Is that
uh-huh.
the a
Yeah.
Daphne actress's name? Do you not
Mhm.
think she's kind of annoyed?
I mean, when people asked her about it, she kind of just said, "I wasn't asked back. I wish them the best." And she was one of the people who called. She actually, took the time to talk to Nicola and say, "Hey, congrats. This is your season if you need any advice." So there's not a kind of an ill will there, but obviously
No, I,
if
I mean not an active ill will, but just kind of a. She must be sat there going,
well,
"Well,
yeah.
there's no reason I shouldn't be in this. It's stupid
Yes, why
Reggie
am I
John
not in
Page's
these
fault."
Yes, that he doesn't wanna come back, and so, had him and I could assume that him and her would have been very much like what Kate and Anthony were, so I could see him
Right?
not really wanting to come back for that little bit to do. I wish he would have though, because we got so invested in them. So I miss them as kind of just being a whole with the Bridgertons because I love some of the best scenes of the Bridgertons together,
Mm,
and being a family. Like I loved that whole kind of they had their ball and they were kind of shunned and nobody came and they just had this happy dance
yeah.
together. Like one of my favorite scenes. So I miss her in the essence that I love the Bridgertons as a whole and would have loved to see her and the Duke and all of them really just intermingling and seeing how big and loving that family is. But I like that, like the scenes that probably would have been given to Daphne, kind of Daphne counseling Anthony, um, in in the second season. Now Kate is kind of counseling Colin. So I like kind of that pass
Yeah.
down of who, and I think in the book it's Daphne who does kind of give him that advice. Um, but it's Kate. So I like that we gave Kate more integration into the family. But yes, I think as a whole I do miss those characters. But generally we had all so much going on that
We
they
did.
weren't missed in this season particularly.
We did. Yeah. And as like going back to Francesca and John, Lord Hilmartin.
Yes, yes.
I enjoy the two of them. They're just easy people, I think.
Yes, and so, yeah, like I was saying, I think that was Violet's whole issue, so I liked that there was a bit of conflict with seeing how excited, Violet was with Colin and Penelope and engaged in their relationship because it felt very similar to her relationship with her husband, whereas theirs is quieter and simpler and not this big whirlwind thing. She doesn't really understand it and doesn't put much stock in it, so she's kind of distant to them and not celebrating them as much as she is Colin and Penelope. So I do like the conflict that creates and Francesca kind of not really wanting to speak to her and all of that because we've seen so many beautiful examples of Violet and even Kate says it, how in tune she is with her children. So the fact that she's not really understanding this relationship, I think it's an interesting conflict to see that dynamic with the family because usually they're really all in tune with each other.
Yeah.
Um, so I like that we had a little bit of Violet kind of faltering a little bit and not really understanding wholly one of her children. But ultimately, she does come around to understanding not every love is going to be the same.
Oh,
And,
definitely.
there's all different types of love. So I like that she kind of learns the lesson. And even kind of Anthony had said that to her too. Like, I think you just need to realize that your love was the exception and not the rule
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah.
So she actually kind of learns that head on with this Francesca situation. So yes, I mean, I like their quiet love story. And then it's going to lead Francesca kind of actually book spoilers. She gets two love stories almost because then we are introduced at the end to the character of Michaela, and we do know that she maybe has a physical attraction to her because they hint at it with when she kisses John for the first time in their wedding scene. She kind of has this look like she's kind of confused by it and she doesn't really know what she feels about it, the kiss. And then she's talking to her mother and she tells her, you know, when I talked to Edmund, I there were moments where I stuttered over my words and I couldn't say my own name or
Yeah.
remember my own name. And as soon as she meets Michaela, she stutters and doesn't remember her own name. So it's right there telling us, okay, something's going to happen here. So, and we did get the showrunner telling us that they were going to have a queer love story be a focus in the future.
I see.
So fans are upset with this. And maybe some of it is from some awful homophobia, but I think a lot of people are upset with it because Michael, the character of Michael Kilmartin, he was more I think he's seen as like a favorite man. He's like seen as the best man in the Bridgerton books, like people's favorite
Okay.
male
Wow.
character of all the men. So the
I mean,
fact
that's a
that they
pretty bold statement.
yes, that's what I've just seen. So I don't know anything
Okay.
about this character beyond just kind of looking into things, and like every video I've seen of somebody being upset about it, they kind of started with saying Michael was my favorite man of all the men in the Bridgerton books.
This is
So
us also having to realize again that this is not the book. This is a very different
exactly,
story, a very
exactly.
different show with more going on.
E exactly. So I think that's what maybe is upsetting people, because what happens is John passes away, and so in the book, Michael is there, develop a friendship, and he's kind of consoling, the loss of his cousin, the loss of her husband, and they
Yeah.
fall in love, and she realizes it's far more passionate with Michael than it was with John, and there's guilt there. There's also a bit of an infertility storyline that happens with all of
No.
this as well, which,
We're
people are
not,
like,
we're not going to
how
have
can you
that if it's
yes, how can you develop that with, a lesbian relationship, and obviously you don't have no in vitro, like,
yeah.
that
Maybe that's
kind of
given to somebody else.
yes, surrogacy, sperm donation type situation back then. So, um
There's none of that.
yes. So people are kind of curious to see how that's going to play out, and how we can have a functioning, non-judged gay couple in this time period as
Yeah,
well. So all of that very interesting, but I think that's what it's playing at. I'm excited about it. I think the woman
I'm very
playing Michaela
intrigued.
is absolutely gorgeous.
That's
So
also very true.
yes. So I could see stumbling over your words talking to her, but yeah, so I'm curious to see how that plays out
Yeah,
for Francesca's story, and if we're going to kind of develop that a little bit, because yeah, I think she has a relationship with John, and then obviously something happens to him to set this
yes,
up. So I'm curious to see how all of that plays out.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's not even only the only queer love story we get in this season,
Yes.
if it even is one, because there's nothing overly confirmed about that. It's just
Well,
educated theories, I think, at this point with
yes,
the
I
future
think
of that.
they did
Okay,
interview.
it's fairly clear, but
Yeah,
as far as the story of this season
yeah.
goes, if we're just looking, I
At
have
a
to
one-time
always just focus it.
developmental, yeah, free flowing moment with this character.
Yeah,
So I think,
I have
we're
to just
obviously yeah.
yes, I have to just focus my entire thoughts on purely what we've seen in the season of television,
Yeah.
because that's how presentation of stories play out.
Yes, that's what
Those
you're giving
people,
me. That's what I'm
that's what you're
working off
giving
of.
me. Those people aren't looking at anything else. Okay, they're reading the book, sure, but they're not like alluding. They might be alluding to, but the fact is they're presenting a certain finite thing
Yeah.
that is not
Yes.
relevant to the books they're adapting. Of course, it's relevant to the books they're adapting, but it's not direct
Yeah,
one and the
it's an
same.
interpretation, yes.
Yeah.
Um, so
But
obviously
yes,
we're talking about
Benedict.
Benedict. Yes, I did see a recent interview with the showrunner, and they were talking about they felt like it was a thread always kind of there with Benedict, and so they felt like this was the opportunity to kind of explore it and pull on that thread, that, maybe he was bisexual, but I think they actually do kind of confirm and describe it as more of a pansexual thing, that he's not
Yeah.
inherently one way or another. He just very much like how Lady Tilly describes it, just an attraction to a person and just
Yeah.
enjoying that and the freedom of that. So what I will say, I do
He's a
enjoy
deviant.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I think, he's just enjoying himself.
Oh,
Um,
he's more than enjoying himself.
yes.
He very much likes enjoying himself.
He
Is it?
does, like, he's even asking, "Oh, where is he tonight? Just you and me?" And she's very much like, "I kinda want it to be just you and me." He's like, okay."
Okay.
Yeah, like, he's kinda disappointed that the vampire boyfriend isn't there. It's this guy just looks like he's
He
getting,
does look like
like, out of the world of Interview with a Vampire to me. So,
he
I'm calling him
really does.
vampire
But look,
boyfriend.
it is interesting that we're even having a polygamous situation going on
Yeah.
almost with Tilly and Benedict and what's the other fella's name? I forget the other
Paul, I
guy's
think his name was.
but it's
Vampire
very
boyfriend.
interesting. You can't be outward about that kind of thing, surely, in
Yeah.
this world. So, and look, okay, we assume the next season is going to be Benedict's central love story. Perhaps it will be him trying to overcome this certain, I
Freedom that he's
don't know,
discovered.
the
Um,
freedom that is, well, not trying to overcome it, trying to obviously keep it. It's a great way of thinking. It's a great way of being. The second half of this season shows Benedict as well to have freed his own mind, and he's somebody that actively wants that freedom, but he's finally taking those opportunities to do that more
yeah.
so than ever before. And I think we like this about him. We appreciate we've seen this build within him, but maybe
Yes.
his central love story is going to be almost more difficult in his own mind, because you have to assume it's going to be one person. It's going to be a monogamous situation. So if
Yes.
he's had a polygamous experience that he actually
How is
quite
he going to go back
likes,
from, yes, how is he going to
how's he going to
want
go back?
to, how is he gonna come back from that? So, that's what my hope is, because I feel like, what was the purpose of this storyline if not to develop Benedict more for his upcoming season and his upcoming story? Was it just thrown in there to add some more sexiness and risqueness to this season? Which I feel
I
like
mean,
a storyline like this would have probably benefited from being in season 2, where we weren't getting a ton of sexual scenes because that just didn't work with our
possibly.
characters. Where Kate and Anthony were lacking because, there was that build of them to actually get together and they couldn't. We didn't
When we
have a
did,
ton of, yes, and then we did. We didn't have throughout the full season a bunch of like scenes like that. So, this season 2 would have benefited from having a couple that was very active in giving us those types of scenes. Um so yes, I hope there was a purpose to giving us this insight into Benedict in terms of him now having this free feeling, realizing he doesn't really want to be tied down and he likes this fluidity of just being with people and kind of breaking the rules of society and all of that, because we saw him be very understanding and in insightful on what society is, and he's trying to be a part of it and trying to be active,
yeah,
and he's finding little tidbits of things that he enjoys about it, but wholly doesn't want to be a part of it. And so I'm hoping that him discovering this whole freedom will play into him struggling with being with just one person in the next season. And I'm also kind of
yeah.
curious to see how that plays out as well. I feel like, is it, because I don't know his book, so I want to read his book for sure. But is it going to be maybe like this Cinderella type situation? Because from what I've learned, the Sophie character that is his love person is on a different societal level than him. She's like a servant to
Ah,
somebody.
a
So
class
is she going,
situation.
yeah, so is she going to sneak into this ball with a mask in a Cinderella at essence? He meets her, instantly connects with her, but then it's kind of very difficult to, is she going to be putting on this ruse of being higher class than she is, like in Ever After or something? Or
I
um
like it. Yes.
yes, or is he gonna discover that she's lower class and that's also going to be a conflict and all of these kinds of things? So
However, I think it's perfectly understandable that of all the Bridgertons, Benedict would be the least bothered if somebody was lower class.
exactly. Yeah, I don't think he'd care.
Like
But I think
like we got it a little bit with Eloise and that paper boy.
yes, yes. And he's had, relationship with Lady Delacroix and things like that, but it was never like a
Exactly.
real, yeah. So, yeah, I'm curious to see if they're gonna keep her a servant, if that class issue is going to be an issue, or if it's fully gonna just be him, "Can I commit to one person because it's the right person, or would I rather hold on to this new sense of freedom that I found?" And
Bit
is
of
it gonna
both.
be this fun Cinderella thing with this character kind of sneaking into this masquerade, and that's how they meet? I think that would be
Interesting.
really fun. So, yeah, I'm
So
curious
you
to see
are
where things go with that, because
definitely.
I've loved Benedict, but I still don't feel like I really know him or know enough about him. So
Well,
I
we
want
haven't had his central romance yet.
yes. So
Patience.
I'm just on waiting with bated breath to really delve into him and get to know him even more.
Yes,
So,
yes, definitely, definitely. I do think there's just one more thing we must talk about. Maybe one more thing. Briefly, I'll mention the fact that, okay, Queen Charlotte doesn't get too much to do in the last half of the season, but
yeah.
there is some very prescient scenes of her properly scrutinizing Whistledown and very much outing Penelope as Whistledown.
Yes.
But
Yes.
after a certain almost testimony from Penelope on why Whistledown became a thing, what it
Yes.
means to her, what it has meant to her, how regretful she is about some aspects of it. Charlotte gives her a bit of a
A nod.
okay, continue, a bit of a wink, bit of a like fair
Yes.
play,
Yes,
Penelope.
I liked that setup. So, like, it's very much in the book, Colin was kind of the one to resolve the situation. He's the one who goes out and makes a big announcement about his brilliant wife, and she's Lady Whistledown, and da 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 da, and saves it with his just adoration for her as Lady Whistledown. So I like that they're kind of going about it. It's almost reminding me of like live action Little Mermaid, how they try to take the common feeling towards Ariel that she only gave up her voice for a man and that kind of thing,
Mm,
and put that power into her own. She wants legs so she can go to land and have that experience for herself. And then Eric just kind of becomes a bonus. So she kind of
yeah,
saves herself, which is kind of this theme of the live action Disney princesses kind of reimagining. So I do like in that essence that they made Penelope be the one to come up with the plan. She writes Violet a letter telling the truth. She writes the queen a letter telling the truth. And she's the one who ultimately gives the monologue, not Colin like in the book. So I like that
yeah,
she takes control of the situation, because I think even it's a revelation uh for Penelope to discover that I've kind of been using Lady Whistledown maybe not to the full potential. I'm just now realizing that she is a voice for the voiceless, not just a voice for
yeah,
me. She is a voice for women, not just a voice for me as a woman. So she kind of understands and becomes aware of the full power of Lady Whistledown for all people who feel voiceless, for all women who don't get to be able to say and do what they want to do. So I like that she came to that kind of point about it that she maybe wasn't even fully aware of when she started it and when she was doing it, and that becomes part of her message to the queen because she realizes
yeah.
what Lady Whistledown can do.
And Charlotte obviously becomes understanding of this
Because
plight herself
yeah,
because
because
of
she kind of had to
something
come to that
her old,
realization with
her old, yes, something her old buddy said to her,
yes.
which Lady Danbury comes in. Of course, it's taken us nearly an hour to mention her name in this
I
episode
know.
about Bridgerton, which is absolutely insane because she is the best, and I
She is
love
the
Lady
best.
Danbury dearly. Um, she just gives Charlotte a bit of a. I happen to remember someone who was younger in this very similar situation, Your Majesty. And Charlotte basically just goes, "Oh, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yes,
You're
fine,
right.
yes,
Yeah.
okay, well done again."
Yes.
But we must please finish today's babbling about Bridgerton, talking about Lady Danbury, Violet, Marcus Anderson,
Yes.
the great little things going on here. The perhaps my favourite scene of the entire season. Never mind Penelope and Colin and all the passion and all the love making and sexy times. What we want is the understated understanding scene between Lady Danbury and Violet of
Yes.
You are free to love my brother because I loved your father, but I'm not going to tell you that directly because you already kind of
I
know.
think you
And
know. It was
Violet,
very much love affair.
Violet
I think
going,
you know. Yeah.
yes, and Violet going, yes, I know, and you are a wonderful friend,
And my
and
father
I
was a
know,
good man.
and my
Yeah.
father was a good man, and I know, and you are a wonderful friend, and my brother is a good man, and it's the sweetest little scene.
So, for me, like, yes, I was gonna throw things probably if, like, they put this great nugget of information into Queen Charlotte, and now we have this situation with Marcus, and they're not even gonna address it or bring it up. Like, I was about to, like I was like, of course, I'm not thinking about it being this nice, loving friendship scene. I'm like, Violet, if she's telling you you cannot be with this fine ass man, you better throw some petty in her face and say, no, you're not gonna tell me I can't get with your brother when you were with my daddy. Like I was about to my brain went to the petty and wanted Violet to throw some emotional blackmail in her face if she was going to try to like meddle and keep them apart, which she was. You know he don't want none of them old crones. You see him looking at trying to distract him with them old crones. Um
Somehow, your mentality on this issue does not surprise me in the slightest.
you're all sweet about it, and I'm just like, no.
Fight, 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 arguments.
So yes, so if it had been a thing where Agatha was very much like, no, you can't be with him kind of thing, I wanted Violet to throw that in her face. But the fact that it was more just about her contention with Marcus and not about
Mm,
Violet, and but they did bring it up and they had that scene, of course, way better than my little petty ass
yes,
solution to the
it
problem.
is.
And I like Marcus just kind of outright saying what he wanted, that he wanted to, have a relationship with her and see her and not just dance around it with fancy Regency assumption
Yeah,
words. I like that he was just direct because this is his second act, as he called it. Which I was like, oh,
yes.
I liked when he called it his second act.
It is
And that he
both
was
our second
second
act,
act.
Lady
And
Bridgerton.
yes, and he who didn't have a love match is very open to wanting a love match. And like I
Oh,
love
yeah.
that he looks at her from across the room and he goes and he like pulls a Colin for Penelope and he sees her run out upset and he wants to go follow her to make sure she's okay. But
Yes.
Agatha
Yeah.
stops him and this is when they hash it out. And it very much becomes a fear. You ruined this moment of me getting away, but now you're also, I don't want you to steal my best friend now too.
Yeah.
Because
Very
I feel
sweet,
like I have
tense.
so little, and now you're coming in and you're gonna steal my friend away. So I like
There
that
is
that also has something to do with it as well. That she has her own grievances with him, but it's also her fear of losing such a good friend to him as well.
absolutely, absolutely, and I love that friendship aspect does come into it. I do admittedly really like the intense arguments between the couple that we do get
And
between
the
Agatha
side eye she's
and
giving him
Marcus.
are so good.
Oh, the daggers she's giving
She's
him.
just like,
At one point, is it Marcus uses her, like, birth name on her
yes,
as well,
yeah.
which she is furious
Yeah, she does
about.
not like that.
She
But
almost
yes,
reverted she almost reverted to a certain accent change in that
a
one
little bit.
particular scene.
Yeah,
I don't know
she
if you
did.
did you
Yes, I
notice
did.
that?
I did notice that. Um,
Stunning work. I love that
yes,
sort of stuff.
yes.
But
Also liked, Anthony kind of looking and like, "I don't like that," when she's, like, giggling with Marcus in the corner. Because I wanna see how
right.
the kids are gonna react is also kind of a
Oh,
future thought as well.
God,
So,
yeah. But no, I really like Marcus. Same as you. I like the directness of him. I like the honorability of him.
yes.
And but the almost understanding of the strife between him and Agatha, you very much understand it from both sides, which I think is
Yeah,
important. He was 10 at this point. He doesn't know any better than
yeah.
snitching on his sister who's trying to escape a life with Lord Danbury, who, for God's sake, we know what Lord Danbury was like.
Yeah.
The most ridiculous, farcical man. state of a disgusting man. She used to have
Yes.
baths 17 times a day to
A
get rid of
day
him.
just to get yes. So,
Um,
but, he's not even thinking of that. He's just like, "I don't want my sister to leave, and if she can stay longer, then maybe it'll all be okay." It's kind of like his
yeah,
little kid thought process in that moment.
which is perfectly understandable. But in Agatha's mind, she snitched on her escaping to what she assumed would have been a better life.
Yeah.
Which you've got to, that would play on you. That would be something that
Yes,
would
and now he's
cause
come yeah.
sibling strife. Of
Yes, and
course,
now he comes back here and you are almost seeing him as this rakish figure, and he's like encroaching on your best friend, the one thing that you have that you cherish. But so I
your best
loved this kind
friend
of
slash potential stepdaughter.
yes. So but I
Say it.
love that. I of course I because that's definitely where my head was at. So, but I love that they handled it in this beautiful conversation between the two of them. They know all they need to know, and then at the end of the conversation, they just pan to the crown that he made
Yeah.
Agatha sitting in the corner. And
Oh,
so, so I needed it to be. Had they not addressed it, that probably would have been something that people maybe would have seen as a small thing, but I would have been mad about because they've made a whole
yeah.
plot. They made a whole really interesting plot point with that in Queen Charlotte, and it was the one plot point in Queen Charlotte that played into future Bridgerton. So if
Absolutely.
they had not addressed it, I would have been really annoyed. And of course, I wanted the petty route, but the fact that they did it in this really sweet friendship route, so much better than what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
No,
And I'm
I
glad
they,
they
they could
did
not
it.
they could not have possibly left it out. And you know how much I loved Queen Charlotte as
Yes.
a series. Great. But
Yeah.
I'm so glad it was in there. It really felt like, I know, aside of everything else, I know ultimately it's a supporting story to this
Yeah.
season, and not even the major supporting story to this
Yeah.
season. But it felt so significant in the grand
Yes. It
scheme of
did. It
Bridgerton
did.
to me.
Yeah. It did.
Um, I I loved it being on there because they're kind of as well. I suppose they're probably the two notable older generation actors in the show, I
Yeah.
suppose, aren't they? Adjo Arando and Ruth Gemmell.
Yeah.
They're probably the two biggest notable ones. So for them to have
Have
this
this friendship.
real
Yes.
powerful scene, but
Yes, and it's
not
also
be and it be a quiet scene, and it be an
yes,
understated scene, and it just works so much in the emotion of eyes and kind of restrained
understanding.
facial
Yeah.
features. Beautiful stuff.
Yes, and it's just very much like you see Violet. I obviously love Agatha, so I can see why my father loved Agatha, kind of thing as
Yeah,
well, if you really think about it. So I can't be mad
yeah.
at her for that. And my mother was a
I love
terrible
Agatha too. There's a moth for some reason in this. This
Just
moth.
came in. It wasn't a butterfly like the big final ball. Uh,
No, unfortunately not. Prudence and
thank you.
Philippa's bugs that they
Yes. Yes,
put
which
out
is
on the
so
show.
sweet also that Penelope, because I think a lot of people complain because I think in the book, Penelope, like, once her family's, like, not doing well, she gives her money to her family and pretends like it's other means. But here she does it at the end. She gives money to give her sisters help them put on the best ball that they wanted of their dreams, which was just
Yeah.
another beautiful bonding for the Featheringtons and the butterflies coming out, another metaphor of, the metamorphosis of these characters.
Mm.
And
No
also then
longer is Penelope a horrible little caterpillar.
yes, she's a beautiful
She's now
butterfly.
a
She's
beautiful, like,
beautiful butterfly.
Heimlich from A Bug's
Heimlich,
Life.
yes.
Nobody
Yes,
talks
the
about A
bugs.
Bug's Life.
The bugs. Well, I think Philippa would have loved A Bug's Life if she was in the right
Little wings.
generation.
She would have little wings.
Yes, that would have been Philippa's favorite movie because she kept calling the butterflies bugs. Um, but yes, and then she ultimately a perfect conclusion to the guy, the solicitor kind of coming around, you can say that all the money came from Lady Whistledown, and the reason you made up that lie was because Lady Whistledown had to be a secret. But now that you know, everyone knows Lady Whistledown, you can say this is Lady Whistledown money. So
shut up, solicitor man. Go away with you.
So it all works out perfectly. And then to end, just finally, all the Featherington sisters have their babies, and it turns out Penelope ends up having the boy. So she, after that talk about her sisters, you think you're a part of this, all kind of thing, and then she ends up being the one to have a boy, and they have girls. Yeah. And it's a very cute scene, and we end with the voice of Julie Andrews transitioning into the voice of Penelope, and ending the Lady Whistledown with yours truly, Penelope Bridgerton. So
Julie Andrews is out of a job.
Right? So are they still going to use her? And obviously no, it's Penelope's voice. And I'm really curious to see how Whistledown is still going to operate, because everybody knows it's her. So they're going to be like, we're not talking about nothing if Penelope's around. So
I would imagine it's going to change from a predominantly gossip column
to just saying what you mean and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And speaking to
a more
bold opinions and honesty,
an opinion piece and feature piece and that sort of stuff.
Yes. And I do just want to touch on, I love that we got writer Colin. I think that was a whole thing for book fans as well, that Colin, is developing his writing and finding his purpose in that. And so, she encourages him. And so that was a big thing in the book, of them bonding over writing and her pushing him to really develop this thing that he was passionate about, but kind of nervous about. So seeing that he turned it into a manuscript, and he's talking about how he was writing it and working on it and getting excited about that. Loved that we got writer Colin. So
yes,
hey.
Very good. I was more than pleased with this second half.
Yes, I'm sorry for people who didn't like it. I feel bad for you, but we liked it.
So I feel really bad for you. I wonder what the hell you might have wanted. By all means, let us know in the comments.
Actually, yes. I mean, are you going to sign the petition that is out for them to add in deleted scenes? Because there is a campaign happening. So are you going to sign that petition? Also, let us know in the comments.
Don't do that. It's stupid. It's like people constantly wanting director's cuts of absolutely everything. Because you weren't happy with it. You didn't make the movie. You go make the movie if you want to do any better. That's the point. That's my way of viewing things like that. Right? Not saying there's not benefit in those recutting of things every once in a while. Of course there is.
But a whole petition to sign and we don't make a big stance about it. Yeah.
We don't need that, and we don't need it for absolutely every little goddamn thing going. We just don't. It's silly. But do let us know. Leave those likes. Subscribe. Ding your notification bells on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel here for more of fun stuff like this. Morgan Hasn't Seen TV, which is, of course, this show. This is Babbling About Bridgerton. But Morgan Hasn't Seen TV does not end. We'll be back with Discovering Dawson's Creek soon enough. And perhaps, potentially, a new show to put into the fold on Morgan Hasn't Seen TV. Very exciting. Of course, we have Monday Madness, Morgan Hasn't Seen, and It's a Wonderful Podcast, the main show, Monday, Wednesday, Friday on the It's a Wonderful Podcast feed on all major podcast platforms. Subscribe over there for all the great stuff. And the Patreon links, the donation links, the social medias are all in the description down below. It's also been scrolling down at the bottom of the screen all episode long, as well as the t-shirts and other stuff that you can buy from It's a Wonderful Podcast Teespring. Yes. Oh no, it's G9 Design Teespring, isn't it? Of course it is. You do that plug.
No,
I never do that plug.
It's scrolling at the bottom. It's in the description box.
It is scrolling at the bottom. For some reason, I don't know it off by heart because that's one of your things.
I think you just need to buy some merch and then you'll see.
Possibly. Yes. Our own thing.
Yes. Advertising, man.
Advertising. Well, there we go. That's it. Until season 4 or any potential other spin-off that might happen of Bridgerton. We'll be back for that. I'm sure we will.
Yes.
But for now, that's it for babbling about Bridgerton, closing out season 3. Janine, I think there's only one thing left to do. In your best Julie Andrews whistle down.
Oh my gosh. The pressure. 3, 2, 1.
Bye.
Bye.